Multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Again, to multiply, you multiply numerator times denominator. To divide, you multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor. So you take the reciprocal of the second one. And the same thing then is multiplying. You're going to multiply the numerators and the denominators. Now I like to say as you're doing these problems, there's really three things you got to look to do. Number one, you're going to look to factor. Okay, you want to factor first. All right. Number two, you're going to look to simplify. You're going to look to simplify. And then number three, you're going to multiply. All right. And if you just do it in that order, you should be fine. Multiply. All right. So basically, you factor, you simplify before you multiply. Now let's take a look at an example. Let's say we have 7n to the fifth divided by 5n squared times 10n to the third divided by 14n. Now in this case we don't have to factor since these are all monomials, but let's simplify before we multiply. So before we multiply these two, let's simplify both the numbers. Like here, I can put a 5 in here and make that a 1. I can put 5 in there and that's a 2. The 7 goes in there once, 7 goes into 14 twice. So I've simplified down the numbers so far down to 2 over 2. But again, the same thing can happen here. This 2 becomes a 1, this 2 becomes 1. So my numbers have become 1. Now variable wise, I have 3 n's in the denominator. I have 8 n's in the numerator, so I'm going to cancel out these 3 n's with these 3 n's, and there's my final answer of n to the fifth is your final answer. N to the fifth. Okay. Now in our second example, as I said, the three things you have to do is you got to always look to factor, then you simplify, then you multiply. Now in this case, we have things that can be factored here. All right, we have the top two, we have a binomial and we have a trinomial. Neither one of those can be, sorry, we have a binomial and a monomial, so the y minus 5 is going to stay the same. And then multiply by 2y squared, that can stay the same. But these other two, again, here's a binomial, it's not the difference of squares, but I can factor out a 3y. And I end up with a 1 minus y. All right, now over here I have a trinomial that I can factor. Now again, these problems are set up. I see a y minus 5 up there, and guess what happens? This is going to be y minus 5 times y minus 1. Alright, now, so we've factored so far. Now we're going to look to simplify. Now I can cross out this y minus 5 and that y minus 5. Again, if it helps you, put parentheses around those binomials so you know that they're together. Now, y minus 1, nowhere to be seen, but here, this y here is being multiplied, so I can factor out that y, and I can get rid of one of the y's here, so I end up with y. So what we end up with is we end up with 2y on the top in my numerator, and on the bottom we end up with 3 times 1 minus y times y minus 1. Now there's one more way you can simplify this. Because this right here is 1 minus y, didn't write it very good, I can factor out a negative 1 and change that to y minus 1 times y minus 1, which can be simplified down to 2y times negative 3 times y minus 1 squared. Again, I would accept either one, but that would be the simplest version when you factor out that negative. Now, in the next example, we have division for the first time. Now again, you multiply by the reciprocal. So the first one, I think back in the day you may have said same, change the sign, flip. Oops, that's n plus 5 all over n minus 2. Like I said, it can help you. Remember, you can't just start canceling things. These binomials are all together when it's addition subtraction. But n minus 2 can divide n minus 2 and become 1. And so what we end up with here is n plus 5 on top in the numerator, and in the denominator we have 2n. And that is as simple as it gets. I can't cancel out the n's because it's addition subtraction involved. We'll do one more example with division. Alright, now on this one we're going to have to do some factoring. Now I'm going to set it up. I'm going to take the reciprocal of x minus 4, which is 1 over x minus 4. Alright, over here the x plus 5 is going to go in the denominator still. And up top I can factor out a 5x, and I get x minus 4. Now, right here, that can simplify. Right here can simplify. And we end up with 5x over x plus 5. And again, if it helps you, keep those parentheses around there. These cannot, this is in simplest form, just like that. So again, whenever you are multiplying or dividing rational expressions, the things you have to remember is factor first, multiply, all right, second, okay, or simplify second, and then multiply third. So again, factor first, all right, you're going to factor first, then you're going to simplify, all right, before you multiply. Simplify before you multiply, and that will help you out while you're doing rational expressions.